The Legends of Grayskull podcast.
Legends of Grayskull is a fan podcast exploring the vast worlds of He-Man and She-Ra. Join Sean Scavarna and Matthew Duke as they discuss the history and mystery of Eternia and Etheria, diving deep into all incarnations of Masters of the Universe.
Hey, you know who's back? It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Now that you know, let's go get ready for the show. It's the Legends of Grayskull podcast. Sit back and enjoy the ride right now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to L.O.G on MYP, episode 6. I am
You got your own battle cat there.
I know, right? Oh, she's clawing me too. I am Matthew Duch, here with Curtis Ackerman, my fearless friend. Curtis, how are we doing today?
Excellent.
We are back into it. We are here. Today, we're going to take a look at Mike Young Productions, episode 6, The Deep End. This originally aired on October 4th, 2002, written by Brooks Wachtell and directed by Gary Hartel. Curtis, how are you feeling jumping back in here? I know Sky War was not quite as high in the sky as you want it to be. So now we're bouncing back here, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Oh, Curtis being cryptic as ever. Well, that's at least good, because I don't think you could even hide it with Skywar from the minute we knew that was going to go downhill.
Nah, that one was rough.
Oh. All right, let's jump right into the episode. So we start off, we got weird power surges across Eternia. We see the Bashing Beetle for the first time. No new characters this episode, but we got a couple new toy vehicles. So we've got the Bashing Beetle that Man-Arms is working on. Orko gets into his hijinks with it, and Man-Arms realizes that there's a power surge going across Eternia. At the same time, at Snake Mountain, Triclops and Skeletor test out a weapon that's also affected. And they realize that it must be the Cordite Crystal, and they head to the Mystic Wall to look for it. So right off the bat here, we're getting some. This episode is really the point, and I remember watching it with my buddies back in the day. Obviously, the beginning was a 3-parter, but this was the episode where we're like, "Hey, this is really gonna continue on these story beats, and there's really some serious continuity here." So that was, as even watching back in 2002 was a lot of fun, just seeing oh wait, stuff's gonna matter from episode to episode.
Yeah, I think there's some good parts to that, and there's some bad parts that we'll talk about. But there were definitely some nice callbacks throughout this episode to stuff that happened previously. It does feel like a good continuation as it moves forward. I do think there's certain things that they may rely on a little bit too much, but we can discuss that as we go.
Okay.
So.
How'd you like the Orko antics?
Interesting. You kind of start. I mean, in Filmation, Man-at-Arms was always getting mad at Orko, always getting irritated by him. So far in this series, we haven't seen too much of that. He did kind of get into some shenanigans at Grayskull when he, sees Adam become He-Man and stuff like that. But he really hasn't been too Orko-y up until now. He's now starting to get to the point where he's doing some stuff that is clearly irritating others. So.
Yeah, nice callback, and nice start seeing that Man-at-Arms Orko relationship flesh out.
Yeah.
What I found interesting here is, I feel like Triclops and Man-at-Arms, especially in this series, are both supposed to be the big brain of their side and everything.
Techies. Yeah.
Yeah, and for some reason, Man-at-Arms can instantly be like, "Oh, this is coming from the Sea of Rakash," but then Triclops and Skeletor, they're like, oh, we need to go search by the ruins of the Mystic Wall because it must be the Cordite crystal. So it's like that part kind of bumped me a little bit in the beginning. Like, why are we wasting our time with this, with the evil warriors going to the Mystic Wall first when they should easily be able to trace it like Man-at-Arms did?
I thought it was good that they went separate direction, because I mean, you could have two of the most intelligent folks, and given the same set of data, they may come to different conclusions. So I like that. I'm okay with that. And I really enjoy what they're doing with Triclops in this series. Because they're using him as a story plot to, kind of bring in some tech stuff and to explain some things. We've already seen a couple times with him using the Doom Seekers in order to, relay footage back to Skeletor and stuff. And so I like that he's kind of the counterpart to Man-at-Arms. And yeah, I'm okay with them going different directions at first, because it just means they came up with different conclusions on where to go. So I'm cool.
Fair enough. So we had to Sea of Rakash with the Masters. They Man-at-Arms takes along Adam, Cringer, Tila, and Orko. So again, we're we're going very Filmation subgroup here. So Man-at-Arms heads into the water to locate the source of the energy disturbance and tells the others to stay, because if something were to happen to him, they need to take over and lead the Masters. So right at the bat, Man-at-Arms is feeling like this might be a one-way mission. We see some cool scuba gear that Man-at-Arms has.
Yeah, it's very Centurion-like.
Yes.
It almost like, I understand he's going to use it for underwater, but it looks like it could be like a winged jetpack too. I'm really cool with that. So, and throughout the first few episodes, we've seen several different looks of the characters, which is something we really didn't see in Filmation. Filmation, they're pretty much, He-Man always wore the same thing, Man-at-Arms, like even when they, like throughout Filmation, when they gave us different versions of He-Man and the toys, we didn't really see that in the cartoon.
Never. At best, you might get like a sleeping robe or something.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah. So I do like that we're getting some different, equipment, different gear and stuff. And I thought, man, I when I was watching it, and I know I've seen this whole series before a couple times, but I don't know, just watching it this time and trying to pay attention and take notes and stuff, I was like, man, that would be kind of a cool figure to have. Like it would. I'd be okay with having that Man-at-Arms. So yeah, I very, very much liked his getup that he had going on.
Absolutely. At the same time, we've got the evil warriors. They're searching around the Mystic Wall. They're digging. They're trying to find the remnants of the Cordite crystal. But unfortunately, they come up with nothing. Skeletor shows up disappointed in them, but quickly deduces, because there's a scale on the ground, that Merman must have taken it and gone to the Sea of Rakash with it, getting our evil warriors on track.
Yep.
This is the other part that kind of bumped me about. It's like, okay, so we couldn't deduce that the signal is coming from the Sea of Rakash. But Skeletor, seeing that there's a scale on the ground in the spot where Merman was with them when they used the Cordite crystal. So it's not like, oh my God, why could there possibly be a Merman scale here?
Maybe it was more fresh. I mean, fish scales over time deteriorate. Maybe it was a wet, fresh scale. I don't know.
Is he doing like the Crocodile Dundee, like licking it, like, oh yeah, that just came off there?
I don't know. I try not to dig too much into that stuff, because I mean, you could also go, okay, well, if that crystal's so powerful, why did Merman give it to Skeletor in the first, 3-parter? Like, why didn't he just keep it for himself then? So you could what if it to death, but
we could.
It is what it is. But it was kind of funny, oh, we found a single scale, and that must mean that
mean that he came and dug it up and took it to his underwater lair.
Right.
Yes. But I do like the fact that they're setting up Merman as a free thinker. Like he's out of all the evil warriors, he's the only one after using that crystal at the Mystic Wall that was like, hey, I should go back and see if that thing's still there, if there's any juice left in it. Like I like that he's the only one who thought about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree, and you're kind of seeing some of these evil warriors start to think about themselves more,
Yes.
than just follow Skeletor mindlessly. I think in Filmation there was a lot of they just did whatever he said and so on and so forth. But like you said, you see Merman going after the Cordite crystal. You see, I mean, in this episode, Evil Lynn's kind of being like sarcastic and with Skeletor as well, like well, why don't you go do it, kind of thing. And just she's starting to be disrespectful, I guess, which is understandable. Like, I think it makes more sense to do it that way because these are not good guys, right? Like the evil warriors are. You would expect them to kind of think of themselves first, and we're seeing that a little bit now. So I like that.
Yeah, he has very, very few blind followers. Beastman might be the only one in this series who just like, yeah,
I agree.
Skeletor.
Yeah. Whenever he kind of says jump, Beastman's like, yeah, all right, let's go.
Yeah, everyone else has a bit more of an agenda though, which is nice.
Yeah.
So Man-at-Arms heads down into Merman's underwater lair, finds the Cordite and tangles with more Merman and some of his aquatic guards.
Which that was cool. Just kind of having some extra, merfolks. Yeah, that was neat that it's not just, Merman under the water. There's other folks down there, and that they're, he's kind of like the Skeletor down there. Like, like he's got these people that listen to him and follow him and stuff. And yeah, that's cool.
And this is where I'm really excited for the episode, because like we're heading underwater, we're heading into Merman's domain. It's like, okay, we're getting a Merman episode at this point, and it's like, okay, I'm down for it, like you said.
From unexplored territory.
Yeah, and where I think, because obviously I've always felt with Merman, his big thing is, when he's above water, I feel he's a very average warrior.
Yep.
But I think if you can ever truly get down underwater with him, I just kind of like that dichotomy of like, now he's the alpha predator. And he even says it to Man-at-Arms, like, you're in my domain now. Yeah, you got your fancy Centurion suit and your jetpack, but like, I live and breathe down here. This is where I've been since birth. So
sorry, I was chuckling because your cat was like photobombing you in the background.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You got a mustache. You got cat mustache. Yeah, I mean, he's got his little minions and stuff with him, which helps. But then you're right. It's also like his territory. He's going to be more comfortable. I don't know. They didn't really talk about him having like extra powers underwater or being extra, but I'm guessing he's able to navigate through water. Because I think call it swimming, but I don't know. He's able to maneuver through water better than others.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's like you put me in a pool next to Michael Phelps. Which one of us is going to move better?
Yeah.
And you take that to the extreme with like a Merman, where it's like he's literally born and bred down here. I don't know if you've ever read the books or seen the movie Ender's Game.
Oh yeah, I love it. I haven't read the books, but I love the movie.
Well, I know the books definitely dive into it, but one of the reasons he's so good is like when they get into like the simulation stuff with like the zero gravity is Ender instinctively understands like how there's no real up and down in space, and he's able to navigate quicker and better than the other kids because he's able to shift his perception. And I kind of think like on the same level, that's how a Merman would be. Like, because in underwater, if you can breathe underwater, same thing. There's really no up or down or anything.
Right.
And so it's just, us with all our fancy Centurion packs and everything can't match him in the water just for maneuverability. So even just at his regular power level, he's still going to wear you out. He's going to attack you from odd angles. He's got his fish friends. Like, it just, to me, if you get underwater against Merman, it's like, okay, he just went from a 5 threat to a 10 threat.
Right.
You know, and that's really where I had hoped this episode was going when I watched it the first time. Like, okay, Man-Arms and him meet under there, and he says, "You're in my domain now." And then, unfortunately, it quickly turns into Man-at-Arms inside.
Yes, which is the turning point, because I equate it to like the first time in this series that I saw Clawful, and I'm like, oh man, they made Clawful like big and terrifying, and then you hear his voice, and it's like, and it's kind of the same thing here. Like, I'm expecting like a really amazing underwater episode with Merman just kind of being tough.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden we see, Man-at-Arms get swallowed by the big fish that he got swallowed by in the first episode, or the first 3-parter. It's like, we already did this. Like, what are we doing? Like, and so we're going to spend the majority of the episode with Man-at-Arms inside this fish, which we did just like 3 episodes ago.
Yes.
So, that part, it's, it started off strong, and then I kind of feel like it turns at that point. So
I agree. So we've got the evil warriors. They're sent. Evelyn casts a spell so Beastman, Trapjaw, and herself can breathe underwater.
That's cool. I like that. I like that Evelyn has. I feel like she is clearly the strongest of the evil warriors, which I don't know was necessarily the case in the books and the filmation stuff. I mean, I would say she probably was, but here it's like far and away. Like, between in the first 3 episodes where she's shooting the meteors at him and stuff and keeping all the masters at bay and this kind of thing, she's clear and above all the other evil warriors in terms of powers, and I think intelligence as well.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, she's right up there. I feel in this series, she's on par with Skeletor. Yeah. Honestly. Yeah. Like, and at times I think it's just she follows him just because, like, even more, he's the patsy. Not even that she necessarily needs it. Like, she could have her own group easily. But I think she likes him kind of being the fall guy up there. Yeah. So then because she's the more manipulative. So then she can go to Trapjaw and be like, yeah, Skeletor sucks. Let's go do this. Like, she needs him to be the boss so that she can throw him under the bus and be like, yeah, that's Skeletor. Let's go do something ourselves.
I don't think she's quite to the level of like Revelation, Revelation Evelyn. Like, that Evelyn is just, one of my favorite characters and masters altogether. But this Evelyn's pretty good. So they're able to breathe, and that means they can just walk under, like basically walk on the ocean floor. Yep. And because they're breathing the water, you hear Beastman say that it, the water basically smells. Like, yes. It's kind of gross.
Well, I like how they even do the line about they get under there and they're like, hey, that spell really did work. Like, you guys just jumped in here, not even like
right. Just start inhaling water. Right. They're like,
oh wow, it worked! Yay!
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but I would be kind of nervous walking in, just assuming that you're going to be able to breathe water.
That's some faith there. So they follow the trail. They come up upon Man-Arms and Merman. Man-at-Arms, like we said, he steals the Cordite crystal from Merman, but unfortunately gets swallowed by the giant fish again. And really, the evil warriors in this episode are just kind of playing. They're just watching. They're just following. They're waiting to see what happens here.
From start to finish. I mean, all the way up to the very end. They're just kind of like spectators,
right?
So
let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, let's see what the big fish does.
And with the Cordite crystal in the fish's belly, it makes contact with the intestines of the fish, and this causes the giant fish to mutate even further, making him even bigger, stronger. He stops listening to Merman and takes off on an above water rampage.
Hmm.
And we get some nice Godzilla-esque scenes of him attacking the Eastern Village.
Yeah. I think it would be a great episode all around if they hadn't brought it out in the first 3 episodes and had it swallow Merman then, because it's like, okay, we already saw this thing above water, we already saw it fly, we already saw it swallow Merman, we already saw the whole stomach acidy thing going on, like there's not much new to this that we didn't already see 3 episodes ago.
Besides the cordite making it bigger, so now he's got like 10 stomach chambers,
and it's for some reason drawing it towards Castle Grayskull.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, but other than that, I'm saying that's really the only difference in this fish versus the. I mean, I assume that it's the same fish. It looks like the same fish. There may be a bunch of them down there, but.
No, I feel it's
at least the same species if it's not the exact same one.
I think this is his panther. It's his
Gotcha.
fish. I still wish the moment it kills it for me is when the fish throws Merman off and takes off on his own.
Mm.
If they had left Merman just like, oh, I have a giant Godzilla fish now, let's go terrorize.
Yeah, but he's still in charge. Yeah.
But with Merman still in charge, I think this episode might have gone a little bit differently for me.
I could see that. I mean, personally, I would rather have Merman kept the crystal and, been kind of a badass and fought the Masters, maybe even fought Skeletor. That would have been cool. See Merman square off against Skeletor with the crystal. But the whole, with the, the crystal going inside the fish, and then you're right, he kicks it off, and then it's basically a fish episode the rest of the show.
Right now, it's just mindless for the most part.
Yeah,
destruction. And they could, 2020 hindsight, but the fish mutates because it comes in contact with the crystal. Well, Merman was holding the crystal whenever he was messing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And Man-at-Arms was always careful to use his mace with some attachments to touch it. So, that could have been even cooler if they'd had supercharged Merman.
That's what I was thinking,
Merman, and then he's like, even if he takes it to the to the village above water, like, oh, I'm as powerful on land as I am in the sea type of thing. That could have been fun, but that's not the episode we have. The episode we have sees Godzilla fish attacking the village. Teela calls the other Masters in for help as Adam turns tail and runs away because he is a coward.
And she notices that too. She looks behind and sees him just completely running the opposite direction.
Yep.
Which, they got to make a point to show. Whatever. It is what it is. I'm over it at this point.
She just had a dissatisfied look, though. She really didn't.
Yeah, she didn't say anything, but it's just like they made a point to show you seeing her see him run away. And it's like, okay, I'm over it. Let's just move on. So, but they can't attack the fish because they, realize that Man-at-Arms is in there, and we did forget to mention Orko didn't really stow away, but he snuck away and followed Man-at-Arms, and he was also witness to the whole thing when he wasn't supposed to. He's doing some Orko stuff.
So he was able to inform Teela that Man-at-Arms is inside the fish, so they don't just start blasting. We do get to see Buzz-Off join the ranks of the Masters for the first time.
Yeah, Buzz-Off and Stratos swoop in.
Yep. Which
is a nice callback to the previous episode, and this is just, we had already kind of talked about it, but it's the continuation of the story. It's not, these aren't standalone episodes. There may be kind of individual stories within the episodes, but there's some sort of string that ties each one together.
Yeah, so there's that continuity running through it. It's not a reset.
So seeing Stratos and Buzz-Off kind of swoop in together when they were just enemies and you resolved everything in the last one is kind of cool that, now all of a sudden you see them working together with the Masters to try to stop this thing.
Absolutely. At the same time, we've got He-Man making his appearance.
Mhm.
I like it too. You see the villagers running, you see that tower falling, and all of a sudden the tower just stops, and you pan over to He-Man. Animation there with him throwing the tower off and saving the people.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of the series is in this episode.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I've talked at length about my irritation with Tila and her, crap talking about Adam and all this and that. And there's a part in this episode where they are talking about using something to bait the fish.
Yes.
And he says to her, well, he seems rather fond of you, and just kind of puts her out there as bait. And it feels to me like that is Adam inside going, all that crap that you've been giving me? Well, guess what? You're about to be bait for this giant fish. And because he has like this little smirk when he says it and stuff. And it just feels like there's like a kind of, like a gotcha kind of moment. And I like that. So
either I'll catch the fish or he'll catch you and I don't have to hear you give me shit anymore.
Yeah. I don't think she was ever in danger, or at least that he thought that she was going to be in danger. But just kind of that like little witty way that he said it, made it feel like there was a little bit of Adam in there.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah, and he's and we're getting into a He-Man now where he's more confident.
Mhm.
He's more in control of his powers,
Mhm.
And he's starting to really lean into it. And I think he really relishing the role of leader too. Like, he's coming in, he's actually coming up with these plans. Like, okay,
Well,
maybe they're not the greatest plans, but they're still something more than just I'm gonna jump off this cliff and hopefully I can figure something out on my way down.
He's coordinating their efforts and working with the other masters. It's not just him going in and saying, I've got this, you guys kind of sit back and watch. Like, yeah, he's kind of a on the field general kind of thing at this point.
Yeah, he's definitely growing. So yeah, he drops Tila off in the middle of a clearing. He jumps into the trees to hide. Battle Cat runs off, and as the fish goes to attempt to swallow Tila, He-Man jumps in instead in the hopes to find Man-at-Arms. And then we for the rest of the episode, we have He-Man and Man-at-Arms in the role of young Link from Ocarina of Time as he traverses inside a giant fish.
Or Pinocchio or Jonah or any of the other inside of a whale type things that you want to. Yeah.
And I will say, though, with your Nothing New, it was at least interesting. And the reason it reminds me so much of the Zelda level is because as the Choroidites imbuing the fish with powers, the intestines are becoming more aggressive. Like they're actually sentient. Like they're to grab Man-at-Arms, and they're trying to push He-Man into like his insides are actually becoming obstacles. Whereas in the first episode, it was just Man-Arms, like, in a stomach. Now there's
in both episodes, you're dealing with the I think the main threat is the stomach acid.
Yes.
So that part remains the same, but you're right. There's some slight differences, but
yeah.
Overall, it's kind of like, okay, we've been there, done that kind. So
the fish continues its rampage as He-Man tries to find Man-at-Arms. He is able to find Man-at-Arms, but they need to get the Choroidite as well before they get out, so they must travel deeper into the stomach. Meanwhile, Tila and the Masters are trying to do everything they can to prolong the fish.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I want to point out that in the first episode with the fish, now I understand this is a Choroidite crystal infused fish or whatever, but in the first one, Man-at-Arms basically pulled something out of his, I guess you would say, utility belt. It was like out of his belt and kind of used it to give the fish gas or something to make him kind of spew him out. Doesn't try that at all here. So it worked before, and this time doesn't even try it.
I think he forgot to reload that pouch.
That must be it.
He had the one pellet and he used it, and he kept saying like, "Oh, I need to get another gas pellet."
Yeah,
he just kept
That
forgetting.
was the one
you know?
part that I was like, okay, well, the first time you were in this fish, you threw that pellet in, and then that was it. You were out. And
Yeah.
this time it takes a whole episode, and He-Man has to go in and save you, but you never even try the pellet thing. But just wanted to throw that out there.
It's like when you tell your wife that you're gonna do something, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, can you check out my tire? I think it's got a leak." Nah, yeah, I'll do it. And then finally it blows out on her, and she's like,
Yeah.
you know, "Hey, I told you to do that." That's what it was. He kept saying he was gonna fill that pallet back up.
The other thing is that as the masters kind of swoop in, they've got Tila's in that like bird vehicle,
The Blaster Hawk. No, not the Blaster Hawk. Blaster Hawk is vintage.
I don't know what it's called, but
Battle Hawk.
It is stupid looking. I do not like that vehicle. I think it is absolutely dumb.
I love it though. I love it. It's got like Battle Hawk.
Yeah.
But the wings do like the X-wing thing where they like open up and they got guns in them.
Yeah, no.
I actually really like that vehicle.
No, and it's got like the springy legs or whatever. Like, yeah, no. Not a fan.
Oh yeah, we did forget to mention. We also saw the attack squids when they first got underwater, and Clawful summoned them. That was another toy.
Gotcha.
And remember that for future episodes, that Clawful was able to communicate with these robotic squids underwater by clicking his claws. Just file that away for the future.
Thoroughly filed.
So yeah. Man-Arms and He-Man find the Cordite crystal. Man-Arms tries to reach it, but is swept into the stomach acid, losing most of his cool armor.
And throughout this whole time, it's getting closer and closer to Grayskull.
No,
it
is not on its way to Grayskull yet.
I thought it was on its way to Grayskull the whole time.
No, first it's rampaging, and here's the point. And this
it was rampaging until he used her as bait, and he drew it out of the city, right? Yep. And then he used her as bait, and then from that point on, I thought it was moving towards Grayskull.
Nope. Now, Man-at-Arms is in the stomach acid. Man-Arms has the Cordite crystal. He-Man reaches his sword down for Man-Arms to grab onto.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of getting Man-Arms, the sword touches the Cordite crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And the fish / the Cordite crystal draws power from the power sword.
Mm-hmm.
And has visions of Grayskull. And this is what sets the fish.
Okay, I thought it was already on the path. I thought that was just kind of confirmation, but okay.
No,
gotcha.
This is because it touches He-Man's sword, and you see the Grayskull background behind, and it was really confusing the first time we all watched it. We back in 2002. It was
confusing this time I watched it.
It took us a few watchings before we're like, oh, that's why it's after Grayskull, because it sensed the power from He-Man's sword, and it's like honing in on that power.
Mm-hmm.
Really weird animation-wise. I'll tell you what we thought was going to happen, because it goes to a commercial break like right after that.
Mm-hmm.
And when we first watched it, because of the Cordite like hitting the power sword and like all that power flowing through, we thought we were going to see Battle Armor He-Man, like we saw the Battle Sound Skeletor when they took the Ambrosia.
Yeah.
So we thought it was going the opposite way. We thought He-Man was going to get charged up
because powered up, huh?
Because of the Cordite into the power sword. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, but that would have been cool too, just to see that. But instead, and that's when the fish does its secondary mutation, where it gets super big. Now it can shoot teeth out of its mouth and everything.
Dude, the launching teeth is amazing.
Yeah, it's badass. But
that's
the
only cool thing about this fish in the whole episode is that it can launch teeth. So
then we get kind of to our climax here. Tila's ready to just take down the fish. No, she's not ready. Arms gets a hold of her through some sketchy communication and tells her that no matter what, that the fish cannot get into Grayskull. He cannot breach the castle, even if it means destroying himself and He-Man.
How does maybe I missed it, but how does he know inside the fish that it's going towards Grayskull?
Exactly.
Like, that's the part I didn't understand. Like,
right.
that part confused me.
Yeah, that whole part still to this day is wonky to me, and it definitely will. I remember our confusion watching back in 2002. All of us were like, "Wait, what?" Like, we don't want to pick things completely apart, but like this section
Like
definitely
if
could
they would have just had if he made contact with her, and then she told him that it was going towards Grayskull, and then he said, "You guys got to stop at all costs," that would make sense. But for him to reach out and tell her that when he's inside and has no idea what direction they're going
I guess the only thing you could think of is we do have the sorceress in here. She has no lines, but she does react. And she does react when the fish initially senses Grayskull. The sorceress does react. So maybe we can assume the sorceress reached out to He-Man and was like,
possibly.
"Dude, this fish is coming." But yeah,
I think they could have eliminated the confusion by just having Man-at-Arms reach out to Teela and then have her, tell him that it's going towards Grayskull, which would only take an extra couple seconds. But I digress. It was just something that I found odd.
It definitely needed a rewrite in these couple pages here to really help clue us in on what's going on. But I like the fact that Teela and the other masters are legitimately confused. Like they're like, "What?" Strauss even says like, "What's he want with that pile of old rocks?" But Teela's willing to follow orders. They set up a kind of last line of defense in front of Grayskull, and they're ready to shoot this thing down, even though they have no idea why Man-Arms is willing to risk his life for Grayskull. I like the Evil Warriors at this point. They're like, "Hey, one way or another, we're either going to be rid of these masters or we're going to be rid of He-Man and Man-at-Arms. So it's going to be a win for us."
From the Evil Warriors at this point is just like a tub of popcorn, because they're just sitting there like just like watching, and they're not doing anything. They're just complete spectators at this point.
Yep.
So,
Teela's about ready to blast the fish, but luckily He-Man at that moment makes it to the fish's mouth and is able to force their way out as he punches the fish into the abyss. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, never to be seen again.
Well, and we get 3 episodes from now.
The Korodite crystal threatens to go nuclear as He-Man decides to use his power sword to absorb the blast. Otherwise, half of Eternia will be gone.
Which he doesn't know if he's going to be able to live through it, but does it anyway.
And it was just at this moment that I'm like, holy shit, they did it before Revelation. Sorry, that was in Revelation. I had never thought of that parallel of using the power sword to harness a magical blast. But yeah. But luckily for us,
he does turn to stone.
He does turn to stone. But luckily for us, this
3 or 4 seconds. And the Evil Warriors are happy about it. They're chuckling. They're ecstatic. Yeah.
Dead He-Man
just turned to stone, and they didn't have to even lift a finger to do it. So.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and then it turns out that's just a stone crust on him as he shakes it off. And we definitively know that this He-Man is stronger than the Revelation He-Man. So
there you go.
That's canon.
Gotcha. And then the Evil Warriors go back to Skeletor with their kind of head hung low, and but Skeletor's not too upset.
Nope, he realizes that he gained some valuable information here. Again, we got smart Skeletor. He'd already deduced that the He-Man was in some way powered by the Elders. Now knowing that He-Man was willing to die to keep this fish from Grayskull, he definitely comes to the conclusion that must be where his source of power is.
And don't forget the scale thing. Knowing that was Merman stealing that crystal. I mean, this is smart Skeletor. So
incredibly smart Skeletor.
Yeah.
But I liked, just that moment of, now he's gonna set his sights to Grayskull, because we hadn't had that yet. And just that revelation back then, watching this episode to episode of like, they're getting him on the path. Like we had to earn our way there, but now we're there. Now we can get down to some classic He-Man, Skeletor, Grayskull shenanigans.
Well, and that I like this Skeletor for that reason. Like one thing I tell my kids all the time, I say, don't make mistakes, make learning opportunities. And it felt like throughout all of Filmation, like Skeletor just lost. He just made mistakes, mistake after mistake after mistake, but he never learned from it. This Skeletor is different. Like he tries to pull something valuable out of every encounter with He-Man. Yep. And I think that separates this Skeletor and makes him, one of the best in my opinion. So at least at this point, we'll talk more as we get into season 2.
No, I completely agree with you. It's a great Skeletor. It's, and watching the series through, for all the doubts you might have starting the series and going through, it's kind of like, it's at this moment where it's like, it's 6 episodes in and we're now to like the crux of the series. And it felt earned, and it felt fun. Honestly, looking back on it now, I know at the time some people were having issues with it, like, oh, it's not feeling that's not going to get to this point, or that's going to be radically different. But just that idea, like I said, that this is the first series. I know nowadays it's commonplace for series to do this progression, but this was the first real series that I followed week to week. A cartoon series that really did this kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
So it was just a
See,
lot
for
of
me,
fun.
it's different because I didn't find out about it till so much later that by the time I found out about it, this was very commonplace.
Right.
But yeah, I could see definitely, watching it at the time where it would be very unique that, some of these story parts are carrying over from one episode to the next. So
yeah, even having the origin and leading into that, you're used to your first episode starting off with your status quo, but
it's
here we go.
It's a nice balance though too, because it's not like if you just jumped in and watched episode 6 and you didn't watch the ones before it, it's not like you're lost.
Nope,
but if you have watched the ones before it, there's just some nice callbacks and some nice story progression. So I think they do a nice job of balancing, making this an independent story.
Yep.
But also making them work together.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
And we got the moral, which
you did watch the moral this time.
Yeah, I saw the moral, which is basically just friends stick together. So
friends stick together. He-Man and Orko. Yep. Good times. All right, Curtis, it is time. We've reached the end of the episode. That means we need to give our Power Sword ranking. So for those of you who don't know, we got 3 episodes. That's 3 Power Swords. That's an episode that's the very best of the best. Perfect in all regards. 2 Power Swords. I cannot talk today, guys. 2 Power Swords is an above average episode. 1 Power Sword is a good episode. Then we got the Cosmic Enforcer. That's right down the middle, neither good nor bad. We got 1 Havoc Staff is a bad episode. 2 Havoc Staffs is a worse episode. 3 Havoc Staffs, that episode should be cast into Despondos and never be seen again. Curtis, the deep end.
This was definitely a step up from the last episode. I would love to give this 2 Power Swords. The fish thing has to knock it down, though. I really did enjoy this episode. I thought it was good, but the fish episode pulls it down for me. So I'm going to have to do 1 Power Sword. But I still think it's a pretty good episode.
Fair enough. I'm right there with you, honestly. I am a single Power Sword. I want to give it 2 so badly because it is an important turning point in the story. There's a lot of good characterization here. I like seeing Teela being in charge. I like her stepping into that Captain of the Royal Guard role, and I know it hurts you, but yeah, I felt she was good in this episode. She had
this was the least annoying she's been in any episode so far.
And when it was her and the Master, she was in charge. She was decisive.
Oh yeah, she was a good leader while Man-at-Arms and He-Man were kind of off the board.
Yes. Yeah. And she was willing to make the tough decision, which a leader needs to do.
Yeah, totally give her credit for that.
Yeah, so I got to give her some props. like I said, the only thing is I really feel they do a disservice to Merman because this should be the Merman episode.
This should
it
be what the
doesn't.
Icons of Evil did for
Right.
Merman. That's what this should have been.
Yeah, if this could have been Merman in charge this whole episode, Merman crushing everybody beneath his scaly feet. Even with the fish, because I actually do like the fish a lot.
I like the fish. I just wish they wouldn't have used it in the first 3 episodes. I think if they used it here without using it there, it would have been a much better episode.
Yeah, if they had done it without the stomach stuff, if he could have just been the Godzilla beast,
I don't think you needed it in the first 3 episodes. Like there was no reason to have a giant fish involved in the first 3 episodes. There was no story plot point within that was in water or made sense for that fish to be there. So if you eliminated that and just had this, I think it works. And in fact, I would probably have given it 2 power swords if that was the case.
It's quite possible.
So,
the world will never know at this point. But
there you go.
But it is a good episode. It's just a step short, and it holds an important place in the mythos of the 2002 MYP series. So, anything else before we take off?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to hit all those buttons below for us. Like, share, subscribe. If you got buddies who are into the MYP He-Man series, let them know because we're going through all the episodes beginning to end. So stay tuned. Next week, we will have episode 7, Lessons. And until next time, make sure you're watching on Amazon Prime.
Oh, come on.